The prosecution will have you believe my client, Grandpa Joe, is the most niggardly, freeloader in the annals of history. Nay, I say. Slicksters, slickers, fellow YouTubers. Today, I'm here to tell you that the Emperor has no clothes. Let's dissect the evidence, or rather, the lack thereof.
It makes no sense. It doesn't fit. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
The prosecution are lying cocksuckers who blow dogs for food stamps.
You cocksucker.
They say Uncle Joe is the poster boy for mandatory geriatric euthanasia.
Get me out of here!
That he lounges and luxuriates in bed, pipe in hand,
Oh, he really this poor.
living his best life. Like a parasite, they'll try to twist the facts.
Yo, don't believe the hype.
Boy!
Don't believe the hype. Grandpa Joe's alright. Grandpa Joe is a war veteran, probably fought in World War I, and maybe even the big one. He's earned the right to a little tobacco. And what's with this criticism of Charlie paying for Grandpa Joe's tobacco? That's called teaching responsibility, people. Charlie's learning the value of hard work and taking care of his family. Grandpa Joe has lived his life, fought his wars, and worked hard. He deserves some respect, not condemnation and criticism. Yes, he may have the joie de vivre of a carefree vagabond, but a master of the art of doing nothing, he is not. Moreover, it's essential to consider the motivations behind Grandpa Joe's actions.
I am fat. I'm a fat fuck.
Excuse me.
But you're not a woman. You're more like an elephant.
How is it that a mother who is a laundry lady manages to keep her clothes in such a state of disrepair?
I'm a fucking fat fucker.
The true culprit here is the mother's cooking. I'm surprised all those old fuckers aren't dead. Joe would have been better off dining on bat soup. Her cooking is shit and she expects him to rise from his bed and partake in her gastronomic monstrosity. Forcing Grandpa Joe to live in a big bed with 3 other geezers. It's a wonder he hasn't developed a stress-related illness, the pinky nail. Well, let me tell you, it's not for the reason you think. You see, Grandpa Joe has a colorful past, one that he's proud of, but also one that he's happy to have behind him. He used to be a entrepreneur, shall we say, in the field of romance. Yes, he was a pimp, but he's since retired and has dedicated himself to more wholesome pursuits, like eating chocolates and telling stories. The pinky nail, just a little reminder of his past glory.
Keep your game tight. He'll play up check.
A symbol of how far he's come. His past, though checkered, has been grossly exaggerated. The pinky nail, as a symbol of his former life, serves as a reminder of his journey towards righteousness, and it's not a testament to any illicit activities.
What the fuck? Fuck you doing?
Nothing. I was here. It's a joke.
We must not besmirch the good name of Grandpa Joe. He has fought in every war, literal and metaphorical. His character, tempered like fine chocolates.
Spent time with them, observed them.
My dear friends, the ostentatious pinky nail is a badge of honor as a certified P. The ignorant masses have chosen to misinterpret this symbol of elegance as evidence of Grandpa Joe's nocturnal escapades. Ah, the absurdity. A true gentleman, such as Grandpa Joe, would never engage in anything so tawdry or unbecoming. No, his pinky nail is a symbol to his poise of his marriage to the game. Celebrate Grandpa Joe's pinky nail for what it truly represents. A beacon of pimping, a shining example of breaking a bitch, and a testament to the enduring power of elegance in our increasingly crass and vulgar world. The fizzy motherfucking lifting drinks.
The gas is so terrifically lifting.
Firstly, it is imperative to acknowledge that Charlie, a sentient being with agency, made the conscious decision to consume the aforementioned drinks. Grandpa Joe, therefore, cannot be held accountable for Charlie's choices, as this would be a blatant violation of the privilege of free will. To suggest that he would force Charlie to consume fizzy lifting drinks against his will is a malicious misrepresentation of his intentions. The elevator incident. I shouldn't even have to address the allegations of inappropriate behavior in the elevator. Grandpa Joe's a gentleman, not a groper. The idea that he would indecently touch someone in an elevator packed with 20 people is laughable. Maybe the real culprit is the person who made the false accusation.
Hello.
In a world where political correctness had yet to be invented, Uncle Joe was the epitome of a ladies' man. Fresh from the war, he brought his charm and charisma to the workforce, making the ladies swoon and the niggas green with envy. But of course, in this day and age, his extracurricular activities would be misconstrued as inappropriate behavior. Can you imagine? Uncle Joe, a man who fought for our country, accused of groping or fondling. Preposterous. He was simply a product of his time, a time when men were men and women were women. And now, the piece de resistance, Grandpa Joe's ingenious acquisition of the chocolate bar.
Bitch, I want my motherfucking money back.
In a move that defies ageist stereotypes and showcases his resourcefulness. For Grandpa Joe's bedridden state does not necessarily imply a complete lack of mobility or agency. Perhaps he utilized alternative means of transportation, such as Uber, to procure the chocolate bar. The exact method of acquisition is irrelevant. What matters is the fact that he successfully obtained the chocolate, thereby demonstrating his capacity for action. Grandpa Joe's determination and resourcefulness are even more impressive as he manages to procure the golden ticket despite the obstacles and lack of support from his family. The mother is neglectful and cruel.
Get your big ass in here.
And yet, instead of applauding his ingenuity, you have the audacity to question his methods? Ableist much? It's time to report you to the authorities for discriminating against a senior citizen's right to chocolate.
You're no gentleman trying to take the nigger from the poor widow woman.
Hashtag Grandpa Joe deserves better. Hashtag ableism has no place here. Or, perhaps,
it was a dark and gloomy night.
Why everybody gotta start with dark and gloomy?
Of course. And Grandpa Joe was busy regaling his fellow grandparents with tales of his war heroics. As he spoke, a mysterious figure known only as the Chocolate Fairy snuck into the room, bearing a gift for the most charming grandpa in the land. With a flick of her wrist, the chocolate bar appeared.
That's what's up.
In Grandpa Joe's hands, unnoticed by the other grandparents who were too engrossed in his stories to notice. It was a masterclass in stealth, and so Grandpa Joe's legendary charm and good fortune once again prevailed, leaving us all to wonder who is the Chocolate Fairy and how can we get her on our side. Furthermore, it is crucial to recognize that to deny these facts would be a disservice to reason and a perpetuation of harmful misconceptions. Because in the words of Willy Wonka himself, a little nonsense now and then is relished by the wisest men.
Perhaps it's time for a new high priest. Perhaps it's not time for a new high priest. Let that be a warning to you.
The bedridden conundrum. I'd like to explain how Grandpa Joe managed to get out of bed. The sudden and miraculous recovery of Grandpa Joe's mobility upon Charlie's win is indeed a remarkable coincidence. It is well known, in fact, supported by the most reputable sources, or maybe not, that the sheer force of joy and excitement can temporarily overcome even the most debilitating of physical ailments. And what, pray tell, could be more exhilarating than witnessing one's beloved grandson win a golden ticket? The connection between Grandpa Joe and Charlie was so strong that when Charlie was motivated and uplifted by the golden ticket, Joe was intrinsically feeling the same way because he's so intensely linked to Charlie. Think an E.T. and Elliot-like bond. Or it could be that Charlie in the Chocolate Factory is written by a British writer named Roald Dahl, And the poor soul would be spinning in his grave if he knew what you fuckers were doing to his work. Because, in the book, the old folks stayed in bed to conserve energy to ensure Charlie would get enough to eat. They seemingly had no hope, no motivation to really live, until he suddenly had an opportunity to do something meaningful. And despite being bedridden, Grandpa Joe had a moment of triumph when Charlie won the chocolate ticket, which was a direct result of Grandpa Joe, fate or divine intervention. Or, despite my previous point, the original author's story point, Grandpa Joe was reading the employment section of the newspaper every single day, and he wasn't qualified for anything that they offered. Too old for work, not enough education for any light work. Or Grandpa Joe and Willy Wonka have a history of rivalry, because after the war, Grandpa Joe worked in the factory, and Willy Wonka fired everybody for fear of treason. And then he found the Oompa Loompas. It was a calculated move, driven by a desire for revenge and a chance to finally confront his former nemesis, Willy Wonka. Grandpa Joe's sudden rise from his bedridden state was akin to a phoenix rising from the ashes, or perhaps a pimp rising to reclaim his former glory. My slicksters and slickers, let us not be too hasty in our judgment, for you see, Grandpa Joe's bedridden state was not a result of physical infirmity, but rather a strategic move to conserve his energy for the grand moment, driven by a desire for revenge and a chance to finally confront his former nemesis, Willy Wonka. And what about this asshole? He's definitely a liberal, freeloading piece of shit. And these whores, they're leeches too. Would have been better if they got jobs to provide for the kid, couldn't they? Instead, do anything else at all that would be productive in any way. They could be out begging and still be more efficient. You don't need to conserve energy if you can go work and make money. Joe was in the war. He's a goddamn veteran. Lazy fuck. And as for the accusation of greed, let us not forget that Grandpa Joe bought the fucking chocolate bar that contained the golden ticket in the first place. He's the one who made the whole fucking adventure possible for Charlie, and yet he's the one being vilified for his enthusiasm.
Yeah, you fucking with some white-ass pussy.
Or Grandpa Joe saw his chance to finally confront Willy, to show and prove that he's still a player.
Morning, player.
Still a pimp.
Pimp named Slickback.
In the classical sense, of course. The audacity. Call Scotland Yard.
It's audacity. You had the fucking audacity.
Grandpa Joe, the supposed god of greed, dare celebrate his good fortune with a little ditty. And what's wrong with that, I ask you? Has the man not earned the right
I never thought that I could be
to revel in his own joy? After years of being confined to his bed, the man fought in the goddamn war. He's a war hero. I've got a golden ticket. A clever play on words. A mere slip of the tongue. Grandpa Joe, in a moment of excitement and joy for his beloved, Charlie, utters a phrase that has been taken out of context and twisted to suit the narrative of the prosecution. Enthusiasm for his grandson's good fortune? Grandpa Joe is simply a victim of circumstances and poor cooking. I say let Grandpa Joe sing his song. Let him dance in the streets. Let him revel in the joy of his good fortune, for he is a man who has earned it. And that brings us to the gobstopper, the assertion that Grandpa Joe encouraged Charlie to steal the everlasting gobstopper. Firstly, it's crucial to consider the context in which this exchange occurred. Willy Wonka, in a fit of rage, had just denied Charlie the grand prize, leaving the young boy crestfallen.
Who stole fizzy lifting drinks?
Grandpa Joe's response, rather than being an endorsement of theft, was a manifestation of his desire to comfort and support his distraught grandson. Furthermore, a closer inspection of the dialogue reveals that Grandpa Joe's suggestion was, in fact, a rhetorical device employed to highlight the absurdity of Willy Wonka's actions. By proposing an outlandish and humorous solution, Grandpa Joe was attempting to distract Charlie from his disappointment and offer a moment of levity in an otherwise tense situation. To interpret Grandpa Joe's words as a genuine suggestion to steal and sell the everlasting gobstopper is a prime example of the fallacy of literalism, where the literal meaning of words is prioritized over their intended context and purpose. Such a reading is not only misguided, but also neglects the nuances of human communication, which often rely on subtlety and implication rather than explicit direction.
This cracker sold to the Jackson plantation.
Wrap him up. That's my cracker.
In conclusion, Grandpa Joe may have a few skeletons in his closet, but Wonka's got a whole chocolate factory full of them.
Underground funk ho.